Welcome to our webinar on marine plastics. Today we wish to share and discuss our flagship report with you. It is entitled Addressing Marine Plastics, a Roadmap to a Circular Economy. We published the roadmap in March this year, and today is its official launch. Our hope is that the roadmap can help you design and make your action plans to reduce plastics reaching our oceans in an effective manner. You may wish to explore the terms strategic, systemic, and circular economy during the course of the webinar. I'm Liana Talawe Macmanus, your host. This webinar will proceed in 5 segments. In the first, we will have opening remarks and an introduction of the project. In the second segment, we will discuss the basics of the roadmap. In the third portion, colleagues will highlight experiences and lessons that contributed to the report. In the fourth portion, our panelists from other time zones will share their experiences and provide reality checks in implementing an action plan. The fifth and last segment will feature a Q&A session with all of you. So, as we go through the program segments, we invite you, our attendees, to please write your questions on the Q&A box. Without much ado, let me introduce Leticia Carvalho, Head of the UN Environment, Marine and Freshwater Ecosystems Branch, to give the first welcome remarks. Leticia?
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Can you put on your video?
Yes, I'm trying to do it. Just a second, please, and hopefully this will work. Yes, can you see me?
Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Great. My pleasure to be here, and good day to all, and independently on where you are in the world. So thanks a lot for inviting me here. So I would like to let you know that UNEP, JEF International Waters, prepared a roadmap to help countries and key stakeholders to transition to a circular economy. And this, in this journey, we rely on the support of very important partners as Ocean Conservancy, Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and the UNEP Life Cycle Initiative, and the Global Partnership on Marine Litter. So this is a strategic roadmap we wish to offer, and we believe that you are doing a very holistic systemic guidance that will help you to capitalize, and us actually, UNEP, to capitalize on our programmatic assets, including the Global Partnership on Marine Litter. And as you may know, the Global Partnership on Marine Litter is an intrinsic part of our program of work, and a pillar for us to work on pollution. So the idea is to highlight that before this program, before and after project situation to ensure sustainability of the international water products once this project is over. So this is the main idea behind this opportunity here, to interact with you and to give a perspective in terms of how this project is handling the before and the after situation, and how transformative this action is delivering for all of us. And the Global Partnership purpose and major reason to exist is really mandated to bring together different partners that can leverage and promote synergies towards to reduce marine litter and to beat plastic pollution in our oceans. So my colleague Heidi Savelli will actually provide more details on this global partnership afterwards, but I just want to make clear again, this is a very important mechanism for all of us to proceed and to advance the work. So I think I would conclude this short intervention, describing that this roadmap will definitely, and we see in this way, provide a lot of potential to help the UNEA propositions and UNEA resolution to really support a transition to a circular economy. And also UNEA to put in place systemic solutions in order to reduce, actually to eliminate marine litter and marine pollution. And definitely this opportunity will also summarize, and hopefully today you're going to have the chance to summarize what is emerging from the recent ad hoc expected group on marine litter that just conclude its work last week, and now will definitely ensure more sustainability and predictability on how to apply the roadmap. So with that, I would like again to say very much thanks for this opportunity and hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Leticia. To give us equally inspiring welcome remarks is Elisa Tonda. She leads the Consumption and Production Unit under the Economy Division of the UN Environment Program, or UNEP for short. Elisa, please come on.
Thank you very much, Liana. And I guess I'll need the support of the host to start the video again. And I'm very pleased to add my voice in welcoming everyone who is joining the virtual launch of the report Addressing Marine Plastic, a Roadmap to a Circular Economy. A report which indeed has been developed under a project named Addressing Marine Plastic, a Systemic Approach, funded by the Global Environment Facility. During the period between 2017 and 2019, the project brought together UNEP, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, Ocean Conservancy, and GRID-Arendal to work together in addressing this global pressing challenge, plastic pollution. For UNEP's Economy Division, the project, and more specifically the component in which we were involved, a component looking specifically at the development of knowledge and strategy to address marine plastic, really played a critical role in defining what is now framed as the value chain approach, which the organization applies systematically in promoting sustainability and circularity in our sectoral work. The value chain approach provides us with a science-based life cycle approach, which enables us to translate scientific information into action aimed at ensuring more sustainable consumption and production. The system which is captured within the entire value chain is actually strategic in helping us identify all value chain actors that can trigger change into this system. That system also helps us map the hotspots of the value chain system, building on available scientific knowledge, but also allowing us to identify gaps of knowledge which may limit our understanding of the system. That configuration, that value chain approach has also enabled us to consult and engage all value chain actors, including industry, government, civil society, the finance sector, to identify the most promising solutions and action that can help address the hotspots identified, and therefore shift the needle towards a more sustainable and circular value chain. Today's speakers from the Philippines and Seychelles were also part of the value chain consultations that were organized in the context of the project. Finally, this value chain approach has helped us to identify a set of concerted action that can transform the system, starting from upstream actions and complementing these with actions in other segments of the value chain. Of particular importance is the opportunity that the value chain offers of concerted and coherent actions across the entire system, as well as offering the visibility of the consequences of such actions in other parts of the system. The roadmap document, which is our focus in today's webinar, was developed by UNEP in collaboration with all the other project partners and is indeed, in our mind, potentially a very important reference for governments and businesses to shape their action going forward, but can also support funding partners in orienting their scope and strategies accordingly. Today, we're happy to present the key findings and share our experience with you. I thank everyone again for joining the virtual event today. And let me give a special thank to the Global Environment Facility for their support and continuous presence throughout this process. I sincerely hope the outcomes of this project will help all of us in advancing our fight against plastic pollution. Liana, I hand the floor back to you.
Thank you so much, Elisa, for those kind words. The Marine Plastics Project is made possible with funds provided by the Global Environment Facility, or the GEF for short. To give us her opening remarks, let me call on Leia Carrer, Senior Program Officer with the GEF. Leia, mic is yours.
Thank you so much, Liana. Thank you also, Letitia and Alicia. It's really a pleasure to be here to talk with everyone about circular solutions to plastic pollution. In fact, I'm so enamored with circular economy that I actually dress circular now. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the SDG logo is also circular, reflecting this growing adoption of the circular economy concept. What I love about circular solutions is that they foster public-private partnerships, they embrace technology and innovation, and yet often they are quite simple. And just as an example, I brought one of my favorite solutions, which is a shampoo bar, which has no plastic container. At the GEF, we invested indirectly in addressing plastic pollution over the last funding cycles, but more targeted efforts really started with a $2 million global project to UNEP, Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and OSHA Conservancy back in 2017. And that project included the roadmap that we see here today that's being launched to address marine plastics. Now, building off the experience with this project, including the early lessons that emerged from the roadmap that we're hearing about today, the GEF has since invested an additional $36 million in national level projects to address plastic pollution in Asia, Africa, Eastern Europe, and Latin America, which have a heavy emphasis on public-private partnerships, city-level engagement, and upstream actions around alternative materials, reuse, refill, and shared economy systems to align with work in waste collection and recycling. This roadmap is really useful in providing guidance as the GEF considers future investments and is particularly timely as we will soon be developing starting to develop our programmatic strategy for our next 4-year cycle of funding. Of course, partnerships continue to be a top priority for the GEF, and with this in mind, I look forward to our discussions and working with you all in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leia, for that contextual history. To give us a project overview, we have Isabel Vanderbeck, our UNEP GEF Task Manager. Isabel?
Yes, Liana. I'm trying to share my screen. Can you see it?
Yes, you can put it on play.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
You see the big one, or you see the...
Yeah, put it on the play. It's on the presenter's mode.
It's on the presenter mode, okay. Let me try again.
Just where you control, yeah. Go ahead.
I have only one. No. Oh, it worked last time.
There.
Apologies.
You can
What
play.
what do you see now?
It's still the presenter's mode.
Remote control. Okay, approve. Grid is helping me. So grid is okay. Okay, I had to
There,
change.
perfect.
Okay, perfect.
Go for it.
But then it means, Rob, you are activating the presentation for me, right? Okay, let's see how it works. Apologies for this. We practiced and it worked, and now that it's live, it doesn't work. So good day, everyone. As Laetitia mentioned, everywhere where you are, I suppose it's a different time, but we are very glad that you are on board of this launching event. I'm tasked here today in presenting the project, its different components and its achievements, but I will do that very in a nutshell, so to speak, given that our colleagues will expand, especially on the roadmap, as Liana presented today in her first commenting on the agenda. So next slide, please. So some might recall actually the Graduate movie in 1967, and this famous sentence, I just want to say one word to you, plastic. Little they knew that such an invention would eventually choke our ecosystems and that the world would have a plastic panic attack. The facts are truly horrifying. In the US alone, and that's according to the Economist, around 27 million tons of plastic go to the landfill every year. 60% is not recycled. Since 1950, in the US alone, they've produced 4.9 billion tons of plastic, which is not burned, nor recycled, and ends up in the landfill. 50% of the plastic generally in the US is used only once. And those are just a few facts. So it's obvious that the current approaches are to handle plastic and manage plastic are totally disconnected. They are either upstream in the value chain for specific type of plastic, and they look at prevention strategy, or they are end of pipe solutions such as ocean cleanup. The linear model, take, make, dispose, is not viable. It has also reached the physical limits. And as my colleagues ahead of me have mentioned, we need to have integrated solution. We need to promote systemic approaches. We need to put circularity into the system. So over the almost 3 years, past 3 years, we've worked with TUM under a project funded by the Global Environment Facility to the tune of 2 million. We had great ambitions, bold ideas, and under the coordination of UNEP as the implementing agency, formed a partnership, as you've heard, to capitalize on the collective wisdom of Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which is our guru in circular economy, Ocean Conservancy, which is more known to its waste management initiatives, end of pipe solution, with the GRID-Arendal, who is a neutral partner, a silent partner, but technically acute to the situation, and also a good manager. And then we've capitalized, obviously, on the assets of UNEP, its convening power, its global partnership on marine litter, its regional seas program, which are delivery arms of UNEP as well in the region, and its life cycle initiative to try to seed some circularity, hence the circle on this slide, with plastic inside the cycle and out of land, rivers, and sea. So this was done through four components, but 3 technical components, and component 4 being project management. So component 1 looked at creating a global alliance platform to redesign plastic from inception, whereas component 2, led by OC, was meant to look at developing waste management solution in Asia Pacific, and also to raise awareness through knowledge pieces and communications pieces. Whereas component 3, under the leadership of UN Environment, with in joint partnership between the Life Cycle Initiative and the Global Partnership on Marine Litter, was to look at identify priority intervention points and provide also integrated strategic guidance. All of that was only feasible because of the GRID, which was coordinating the work of Ellen MacArthur Foundation, Ocean Conservancy, and UNEP. So thank you, the GRID. So to dive a bit deeper into what components achieved, so component 1, under the auspices of Ellen MacArthur Foundation, connected a global alliance across the entire plastic value chain, including major plastic producing and plastic using corporations, as well as governments and processing companies. It helped also apply the principles of circular economy, rethink, redesign the future of plastic, starting with packaging, and promoted innovative solution for plastic redesign and global plastic protocol via its innovation prize. The 3 main products: the global commitment, which now counts on over 400 signatories, with 150 business representing over 20% of global plastic packaging. The national pacts, with stakeholders, mostly national, at times regional, including government, businesses, citizens, and so forth, and the innovation prize to incubate solutions. Component 2 has been a very rich component, and they've all been very rich, but component 2 helped us advance waste management solution in Asia Pacific. So it was more underground activities. And just to cite a few of the long suite of products developed under component 2, I like to stress the gender assessment of women and their roles in the waste collection in India, Indonesia, Philippines, and Vietnam. And I like also to underline the experience of Indonesia in the waste management plan, championing the volunteer marine debris monitoring protocols and framework. Vietnam also has developed a waste management strategy. And I would also like to stress as well the joint investment fund under component 2 to combat ocean pollution, also in Southeast Asia. And it was a public partnership made feasible through blended finance from USAID and Circulate Capital. And it worked in Indonesia, Philippines, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, mostly in municipalities. Moving on to component 3. Component 3 undertook a stock-taking exercise of existing knowledge and actions and map leakages to identify hotspots along the global value chain, and also provided a roadmap of strategic intervention. And we've heard from Leah that this is meant to be a critical piece for everyone around this call and beyond, but will certainly continue to inform the work of the GEF in marine plastic in the next cycle, starting in 2 years. So basically, with all of the products delivered by the project, we managed to distill some global and regional learning from the Global Pact, from the Innovation Prize, from under component 1, from recommendations that were packaged to and offered to Canada, but also G7 ministers to support their ambitions in reducing marine plastic through the stock taking, as I mentioned, exercise under the component 3 with capitalizing, on the Global Partnership for Marine Plastic and the Regional Seas Program. We managed to learn and to distill the key learning fact at the global and regional level. Whereas from the experience of component 1, 2, and 2, at the national level through the Plastic Pact to Circulate Capital, to the Indonesian initiative, and to the voluntary marine debris monitoring protocol experience, we learned more about what was suitable at the national and local level, and all of that informed the definition of the roadmap to a circular economy to help stakeholders to transition to a circular economy, moving away from a linear model, ensuring that the ecosystem become plastic free. So this is a very, very quick overview. I would encourage you of the project. I would encourage you to visit the website. It's a very nice structured website. You have the whole suite and the whole cohort of products. We have a lot of knowledge products. We have a lot of publications, and we also have a lot of good stories. So with this, I hand over back to you, Liana, and my colleagues will expand on the most critical product, which is the roadmap that we are launching today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isabel, for such a comprehensive overview. To walk us through this flagship report, we have Ranchi, who is Associate Program Officer working on Circular Economy for Plastics and Electronics at the Economy Division of UNEP. Ran, the floor is yours. Go ahead, Ran. Ran, could you check your microphone?
Can you?
Yes.
Sorry for this inconvenience caused. On behalf of the project team, I will introduce this short but comprehensive roadmap, which provides critical actions to develop a circular economy for plastics. So first, a brief background of the roadmap. Although marine plastics has been receiving more and more attention in recent years, and we have seen already a number of initiatives working on plastic issues at global, regional, and national levels, it remains a challenge to define an effective strategy to address marine plastics in a systemic way, because plastic pollution per se is such a complex problem. We see the gap still exists in many aspects. We still lack of adequate knowledge to understand the flows of macro and microplastics into the oceans. We see gaps in terms of policy coordination, technology, as well as awareness and financing. Despite the complexity of this plastic challenge, what is clear is that plastic pollution needs to be addressed along the entire plastic value chain by making a systemic and fundamental shift from the current linear economy model to a circular one. With the joint efforts of all partners working on this project, we developed this roadmap to provide a general action-oriented strategy for a circular economy for plastics by identifying a set of priority actions to be implemented by stakeholders under different timeframes and at different geographical scales. It is built upon the deliverables of all of the 4 components of the project as listed in the 2 pictures you can see on this slide. This roadmap can be used as a reference by funding agencies, governments, civil society groups to define the scope of their strategies to facilitate and scale up their interventions on plastic pollution. The vision we described in this roadmap is a world without negative impacts of plastics, where plastics retain their highest value along the value chain. No plastics leaked into and damage the environment, and maximal circularity for plastic materials is reached at scale and around the globe. In terms of concrete types of actions to be taken, this roadmap identifies 4 building blocks to achieve a circular economy for plastics, which is also aligned with the approaches taken by the key partners of this project. The first is to create cross-cutting enabling conditions, meaning we need to get the institutional arrangements ready in terms of legal arrangements and policy, as well as knowledge, stakeholder engagement, financing, and capacity development. The second building block is about to eliminate all problematic or unnecessary plastic products, including toxic additives. Third is to innovate design, production, and business models to ensure that plastics are reusable, recyclable, or compostable. And finally, we need to circulate all plastic products at their highest value within the economy to keep them out of the environment. The roadmap also identified key benefits of a circular economy model. The environment benefits include to ensure resources are used in a more efficient manner and reduce virgin plastic production. Also, circular economy approach can help reduce emission from incineration of plastics at their end of life. And other environmental benefits include reduction in toxicity risks to human and ecosystem health and protection of biodiversity and ecosystem services. There are also socio-economic benefits. For example, reduction in ocean plastic-induced loss of marine natural capital, which is key to ocean-based economies, including fisheries and marine tourism. And other benefits include increased efficiency in informal waste recycling sector. And through innovation, circular economy can also be a promising source of green jobs. To summarize the key recommended actions towards circular economy for plastics, this roadmap developed a table with key actions to be taken under the 4 building blocks and outcome and output level indicators to measure progress. At the outcome level, progress can be measured by looking at the improvement in circularity along the value chain, which can be further measured by the reduction in production of virgin materials and consumption of plastics, increase in reuse rate and recycling rate, as well as percentage of recycled content used in products. Another indicator is the tons or percentage of reduction in plastic leakage. And we can also measure progress by looking at to what extent the impacts of plastic pollution are reduced. So what are the actions we need to take? Here you can see some of the key actions we identified under the 4 building blocks. Under the 4th building block, create cross-cutting enabling conditions, we suggest to take actions on knowledge creation, including to set up global consensus on methodologies to allow for harmonized analysis on plastic material flows, and to set up country baselines based on plastic leakage assessment. And there are also policy-related actions, including to support governments tracking and measuring their progress towards a circular economy for plastics, as well as to develop a policy and financial mechanism to reduce the amount of plastic waste, promote reuse, and increase demand for recycled content. Financing is also a key dimension. What we can do is to provide funds from the extended producer responsibilities scheme and other channels to sustain investment in actions to address marine plastics. And there are also actions on the side of awareness raising, which include to promote to provide consumers with better sustainability information and to share best practices and support capacity building. Under the second building block, eliminate, we need to define a list of problematic material or additives that are known to cause negative environment and health impacts, and with a higher probability to leak into the environment. We can also ban problematic or unnecessary plastics, while at the same time to provide alternative solutions based on full life cycle assessment to avoid unintended trade-offs. In terms of innovate, key actions include innovate on new polymers and alternatives with lower impacts on the environment, and innovate and set up pilots to scale up sustainable product design. And we also need to develop technologies for better sorting, collection, recycling for high quality secondary material, and also develop new business models to shift from single use to reusable packaging and products. Finally, regarding circulate, we suggest to promote sustainable purchasing, including sustainable public procurement, which can help send a strong market signal to create demands for products with recycled content, and improve waste management systems through developing public-private partnerships to invest in infrastructures and develop and implement policies to formalize informal sector involved in waste collection. In Annex 2 of the roadmap, we also provided a more detailed table of actions for readers to take reference, which gives more detailed description of actions needed and categorize actions by action domain, time frame, and geographic focus. It also indicated the specific life cycle stages related with those actions and suggested which stakeholders should be mainly responsible for implementation of these actions. As mentioned earlier, this roadmap is a general action-oriented strategy for circular economy for plastics, with a comprehensive manual of actions for your selection. Stakeholders need to further tailor these actions according to your specific context when shaping your own action plan to address marine plastics. We hope you'll find this roadmap useful in helping structure your marine plastics strategy along the circularity thinking. And the project team would be happy to take any question you may have on this roadmap at the Q&A session later. Thank you very much. Now I give the floor back to Liana.
Thank you so much, Rand, for that deep dive into the roadmap. We're on to the third session of the webinar, where we hope to learn about the experiences and knowledge that contributed to the roadmap. Sander de Freud, lead of the Ellen MacArthur Foundation's New Plastic Economy, will talk about the development of a set of global commitments for plastics, a major effort that has galvanized key stakeholders in the plastics value chain. Sander, please take the floor.
Yes, sharing my screen now. Hi, everyone, and welcome, everyone. So, can you see my screen? Sorry, I see some popping up here on my screen.
We can see your screen. We
okay.
also want to see you.
All right.
Perfect. Go for it.
All right. So, back in 2016, we launched our very first report on plastics, and that was calling out that if we failed to act, there would be more plastics in our oceans than fish by 2050, a statistic that really helped raise global awareness of the vast scale of this issue. But more importantly, that same report also put forward a vision for a plastic system that works, a circular economy for plastics. And following that report, we rallied support from plastic producers, users, recyclers, retailers, and governments all around the world behind this vision, and did that through a second report and building more evidence base, an innovation prize to stimulate more innovation, through, very crucially, kind of bringing together all the major players throughout the value chain to stimulate collaboration and guide collaborative projects amongst them. But then 2018 was the year when we really reached the next major milestone on this journey. That's when we launched the global commitment in collaboration with UN Environment. And that was really the moment when we were asking all these businesses and governments to turn their support for this vision into real commitments by also committing to concrete 2025 targets. And by now, this global commitment is uniting more than 500 organizations, including many of the world's largest producers and users of plastic packaging, from Coca-Cola and PepsiCo to Danone, Unilever, Apple, and H&M, but also governments, investors, NGOs, and many other actors. And all of these organizations explicitly signed and endorsed one common vision of a circular economy for plastics, and a vision that's recognizing that landfill and incineration are not long-term solutions. That is recognizing that we won't simply recycle our way out of this. And that's recognizing that we really need a comprehensive circular economy approach, as this is the only solution that can really match the scale of the challenge. And achieving such a circular economy requires a real system change. It was not about tweaking the linear system. It's really a fundamental change of the system. And that's why it's so crucial to have that critical mass of stakeholders all aligned behind a common vision, behind a common direction forward. Another really crucial part of the global commitment is annual and public and transparent reporting on progress. And by having all signatories report their progress in a way that they're all using the same definitions is really creating unprecedented transparency on what progress is made, but also on where progress is lacking, that then really informs the next steps again. And this chart, for example, is from our last progress report we launched just 2 weeks ago. It's illustrating the unprecedented transparency that is created, and it's actually just the tip of the iceberg, because there's much more information published by all of these organizations, but also by 120 other businesses and governments, and all of that is publicly accessible through our online data platform. So that transparency has been a major step forward. I mentioned that aligning the critical mass of stakeholders behind a common vision at a global level is absolutely crucial, but it's equally crucial to realize that the way and how exactly to realize that vision will be different from country to country, because the US is not South Africa, is not Chile, is not the UK. And that's why we complemented our global commitment with a global network of plastic pacts. And these bring together the stakeholders across the value chain, like we did at global level, but now at national and regional level, again united all behind that same common vision, and this time behind a set of targets that is tailored to the local context of that country or region, with the ambition to really drive implementation on the ground in a way that is fit for the local context. So that's where we are today. Everybody's aware of the problem. A critical mass is committed, both globally and locally. So what's next? And I mean, our progress report 2 weeks ago, as well as the progress reports of the different plastic packs, are showing that progress is being made. We, for example, saw a significant 22% increase in recycled content for our signatories in just 1 year time. We see that almost all of them are now eliminating things like PVC and polystyrene packaging. We've seen that our global commitment signatories have mobilized more than $10 billion of investments behind these targets in order to achieve them. But equally, the data clearly shows that in the next years, we need to see a substantial further acceleration of progress in order to meet the 2025 targets. And more specifically, we're calling on businesses to, first of all, set ambitious reduction targets and really step up their ambition level and efforts on solutions that go beyond recycling, solutions that reduce the need for single-use packaging in the first place. And in order to support them, we are actually tomorrow publishing this Upstream innovation guide, which has actionable frameworks, tools, a case library with over 100 case examples to really help them think beyond recycling and see a much bigger solution space than the one they've been focusing on so far. Secondly, we're calling on these businesses to take bold action on some of the packaging types that are not recyclable today. We see, if we look at the small format flexible packages, for example, the sachets, the wrappers, the crisp bags, we don't feel there is a clear pathway forward, or at least not an aligned pathway forward. And in the industry, we see many players go different directions on this one. So we are calling on the industry to collectively either develop a credible roadmap to make recycling work for these items, or if there is no credible roadmap to do that, then we need to see bold and decisive action to move away from these packaging types in the first place. And then finally, recognizing that voluntary industry action alone will never be enough to deliver the change at a scale and pace that is needed. We're also calling on governments to put in place the necessary policies, both domestically, thinking about extended producer responsibility regulation, for example. I mean, without such regulation, we don't believe recycling is likely to ever really scale meaningfully, because the economics simply don't stack up without such policies. But also beyond domestic policy, we call on these governments to come together globally and put in place a global treaty on plastic pollution, because such a global treaty can significantly accelerate the journey that was started by front-running businesses and governments through the global commitment. So we've come a long way. We've really, the industry, the whole value chain, as well as governments, have made progress, have started to work together. They are all committed, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And the question is not whether a world without plastic waste and pollution is possible, but what we're all collectively going to do to make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sander, for an overview of and progress on the global commitments. To give us a flavor of the gamut of policies relevant to plastics, let us listen to Trevor Voltmer. Trevor leads Ocean Conservancy's Plastic Policy and Finance team. Trevor, your turn, please.
Good morning. Can you see my screen? Good morning. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see you.
Yes, we can.
Wonderful.
Put it on play.
Wonderful. So good morning from Washington, D.C., and thank you very much for inviting me. For me, this webinar is a great opportunity to not only speak, but also to learn. It's really exciting to see the international community converging around this issue, and that we're no longer debating whether we need to transition to a circular economy. We're trying to map out the pathway to do so, and that's real progress. So this is a very brief overview of Ocean Conservancy. We work on a wide range of ocean issues: climate, fisheries, Arctic, ocean planning. I head our policy and finance team, which sits within our larger trash-free seas programs. Other parts of the program oversee the International Coastal Cleanup, which is the world's largest beach and waterway cleanup effort, and the International Ghost Gear Initiative, which is focused on sea-based fishing gear, as well as our science team. So Ocean Conservancy has been working in this space for a long time. Our work is grounded in science, and my colleagues working in this space have helped to catalyze, or more recently, co-author some of the foundational science that we all rely on to tackle this issue, beginning with the publication of the now famous Jambeck paper in 2015 and continuing to this day. And what the science is telling us is that despite huge interest in marine debris and growing awareness, the problem continues to get worse and not better. So about the same time we began convening scientists to understand the scope and scale of the marine debris issue, we also started trying to understand the why. So working with the Trash-Free Seas Alliance, which is an Ocean Conservancy-led group that brings together leaders from business, conservation, and academia to create a pragmatic forum for real-world collaboration, we published a report called Stemming the Tide, which we released in 2015. And in 2017, we followed up with The Next Wave, which tried to dig into that question a bit more. We augmented that work with the efforts that Isabel mentioned a little bit earlier, the role of gender and waste management, the creation of Circulate Capital, which is the world's first catalytic capital fund, which has raised more than $100 million to target ocean plastic, as well as the work I'd like to talk a little bit about now. So following up on one of the key findings from the next wave, which is that collection systems operate at a net loss, and I think Sandra referred to that in his presentation, our next initiative looked at what could be done to address those ongoing losses. And as Sandra also mentioned, it's often said there's no silver bullet to solve the problem of marine debris. But we wondered how many bullets there might be and whether some of them might be more effective than others at targeting this problem. And the result was our plastic policy playbook, published last October. We started with a very long list of about 180 measures, which we then consolidated and ran through an analytical framework that examined the impact. What is the potential for this measure to reduce ocean plastic, and what other positive or negative impacts might it have from an environmental, economic, and social perspective? And then the second sort of framework we ran it through was how hard would a measure be to implement and sustain? Then we looked at how the measure might work in our 5 focus geographies in South and Southeast Asia, and whether some of these measures might be combined to maximize impact. And then the fun really started. We took our preliminary findings to 3 countries in the region and tested them with local experts. Crispian, who you will hear from today, was part of that process in the Philippines. And during those discussions, local experts were really happy to tell us everything that we'd gotten wrong, but also what we'd gotten right. And so the result of that process was a short list of 24 measures. So although we found a lot of differences across the countries that we looked at, we did coalesce around some basic prerequisites that seem to hold across geographies. None of these are rocket science, but they are important to ensure success. So the playbook is organized around 4 themes based on the findings. And while it is now a year old, I think it's holding up nicely. The international community is converging around broadly similar themes. And the real question that I think we're all thinking about now is how can we collectively do all of these things simultaneously? So this is a very condensed summary of the key findings. And I think we also heard some of the other speakers talk about the importance of extended producer responsibility, or EPR. The good news from the findings of our analysis is that the financing gap, which is real, is not insurmountable. And there are measures like EPR, which if you implement them properly, could go a long way toward closing that gap. The other measure that I haven't heard mentioned today yet that also scored very highly was recycled content standards. And so based on our analysis, that should be a priority measure. So to help various users chart their own pathways, the playbook offers a roadmap that provides guidance on options and trade-offs among the 24 policy measures, because we recognize that this journey is going to look different in different places. And so we wanted to help people try to understand how they could map their own journeys. So I'd like to end by talking about how we're following up on some of the insights that we gained from the playbook. As you might remember, engage the informal sector was one of the 5 prerequisites for success. And since publishing the playbook, we have delved into that specific issue a little bit further. Earlier this year, we published a scoping report that looked at how the informal sector, which provides a very valuable public service, could be empowered to be part of the solution for ocean plastic. And as a result of that research, we believe inclusive recycling could be a very important part of the solution set, which could deliver just not only environmental, but also economic and social benefits. So we are now building out an initiative to test that theory, to better understand how we might incentivize the informal sector to collect low-value plastics that are at high risk of ending up in the ocean, as well as some robust analytics around the quantities, costs, and benefits of this approach. We are really excited about this work, so stay tuned for more. So I know I threw a lot of material at you at a very short time, but I'm going to turn it back to Liana now, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Shever, for the exemplary work of Ocean Conservancy. To discuss the building capacities for national waste and policy inventories, among others, is Heidi Savelli. She coordinates marine litter activities within the framework of UNEP's Global Partnership on Marine Litter. Heidi, please take it away. Heidi?
Can you hear me? I'm starting video now.
Yes.
I think you
Please
should be
turn
able
on your
to,
video as well.
and you
Thank
can
you.
see my screen perhaps as well.
Not yet.
Perhaps now.
We see you, but not yet your screen.
Okay, let me try again. Okay, this might be then a bit of a problem. I will start and speak meanwhile, just to give some
Okay,
background.
go ahead.
And then perhaps we'll come to the sharing of screen in a little minute. So thank you very much for in giving me the floor. I'm working with the Marine Litter team in the UN Environment Program, especially the Global Partnership on Marine Litter, which was established on the request of countries in 2012 to support the development of various actions around the prevention of marine litter and microplastics. The partnership itself focuses on reducing the leakage of plastic into the ocean, both through improved design, application of 3Rs principles, encouraging closed-loop systems and more circular production cycles, and maximizing resource efficiencies and minimization of waste generation. It also supports implementation of various processes, such as UN Environment Assembly, but also regional processes through the regional SEAS conventions and action plans. One key aspect is, of course, the generation of knowledge, which is key in this particular area. A lot of work has been done over the last year. The project has been finalized for some time, but of course still relevant information that's been generated through it. The knowledge, especially that we find interesting, is now to look at what is the state of knowledge on marine litter, microplastics, and plastic pollution in general, like sources, pathways, hazards of litter, including plastic and microplastic pollution. So we are working to encourage more engagement through environmental justice work, decent jobs, but also risk assessment frameworks for how to better identify what are the key areas and products and polymers that need additional attention, so that you can consider what approaches you should take to either eliminate them completely or to look at managing the risk assessment of them. This means working at various levels, including global and regional. We concluded the ad hoc open-ended experts group last week, which is a subsidiary body of UN Environment Assembly, and which came up with a series of potential areas of action for the UN Environment Assembly for consideration. But this is only a global, this is at global level, and there is of course a lot of action happening at regional with regional SIS, with action plans and various other activities. I think I'm just going to have to do this without some stuff. One area which we have been working on is especially supporting countries on continuing taking the development of regional action plans down to the national level. And here, a national source inventory approach looking at both indicators from SDG 12, 14, 6, and 11 allows us then to dive a bit deeper into what information is available, where are there gaps, and how can this inform the action that the country may wish to consider, both in terms of policies, but also with technology and technical other types of solutions. This has been carried out in collaboration with the UN Habitat, for example, if we're looking now at a little bit more on pathways and also on the influx of litter into key oceans and also rivers. So working with Habitat, we looked at point sources for hotspots, identifying key areas in a few regions initially, which is now being scaled to global levels. That's also included, for example, the development of a plastic leakage model for cities and a potential sub-indicator to 11.6.1, which could be potential leakage of plastic from cities. Of course, last but not least, we are working on integrating and trying to share the knowledge that's generated by increasing the capacity of member states and stakeholders to monitor and measure the state of the environment, identify what are key products and polymers through brand audits and monitoring approaches for the baseline establishment at national levels, and also using this to channel through massive open online courses and also through awareness raising activities like the Clean Seas campaign. So I think I'll stop there, and thank you very much again for the floor.
Thank you so much, Heidi. We have learned about the plastics roadmap and the experience to mobilize producers, governments, businesses, and civil society around a vision of circularity. But how do these relate with the challenges and successes that go with implementing action plans? For the fourth segment, let's hear from colleagues from across the oceans. From the Caribbean, we are joined by Fadila Ali, who is the Program Manager for the Caribbean node of the Global Partnership on Marine Litter. Take it away, Fadila.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I believe my screen is showing. So yes, I think Heidi gave a great introduction to the work of the Global Partnership on Marine Litter, and I'm here to speak from the Caribbean perspective. So many of the messages are the same, but we are focused on the regional level. And the Caribbean node of the Global Partnership on Marine Litter is actually co-hosted by the Cartagena Convention Secretariat and Caribbean Environment Program, as well as with the Gulf and Caribbean Fisheries Institute. So just some quick reactions. What's really great for us to see when it comes to the roadmap is that there is the alignment of several recommended action items, and they align really well with the priority actions that have been identified by our marine litter management strategy for the wider Caribbean region, as well as our regional action plan for marine litter, known as the RAP-MALI, also from the wider Caribbean region. So it's really good to see that our priorities are aligning not only within the region, but also on an international scale. When it comes to some of the challenges that we face here in the Caribbean, especially when it comes to do with extended producer responsibility, here in the wider Caribbean region, we are highly dependent on imports. Very few of our goods, especially related to packaging, even if goods are produced locally, many of the packaging is imported. So the ability for extended producer responsibility for developing and requiring those activities is a little bit more difficult or challenging for us, and as well as for the design for reuse and recyclability because of how many products are being imported. Also, the provision of solid waste management services has also been a little bit less than ideal because there's been some general weaknesses in that area, along with identifying hotspots, because these are the major sources of plastic leakage into the environment. And although there have been some activities to begin looking at this, generally on a regional level, this is still very much unknown. Another challenge that we found is that there tends to be a lack of appropriate business case models when it comes to private sector involvement, or also when it comes to implementing single-use bans, single-use plastic bans, because there tends to be any comprehensive or detailed, whether it be socioeconomic, strategic environmental assessments, or any regulatory impact assessments from being implemented. And then also, when it comes to identifying alternatives to things such as plastics or styrofoam, the identification of appropriate or also culturally acceptable alternatives tends to be an issue. Here in the Caribbean especially, there have been some really unique ways that they have identified alternatives, such as using bagasse, which is a sort of waste product from sugarcane, but often there is no legal requirements when it comes to branding. So often there are products which are branded as being eco-friendly, or even people put in biodegradable on styrofoam, and there are no consequences when it comes to the improper branding. So this is really a whistle-stop tour right now. So those are some of our challenges, but some of the successes that we found has to do with really creating and building partnerships with various stakeholders. Here with the Caribbean node, we have developed partnerships with the private sector, such as the Sandals Foundation, and with intergovernmental level with UNEP, also with youth groups such as the Caribbean Youth Environment Network, with academia and research institutes such as St. George's University, as well as other NGOs. Another approach that we have had success in is creating a harmonized approach to monitoring and collecting data. And this was developed with transboundary cooperation through the OSPA Commission. And the benefit of this is that throughout the region, people are, various groups are collecting data, but because people are using various methods, we cannot combine that to create more long-standing baseline data. So having this harmonized approach means that we can have a stronger data set. Another success is that we have been developing several campaigns at a national level and a regional level, and using various means, whether it be person-to-person outreach or via social media campaigns and other such sources. And these have been trying to encourage consumers to choose more sustainable actions and even acting at an individual level. Because when it comes to plastics, generally it seems like such a large problem that people feel overwhelmed that they cannot do anything. And this has helped to reduce plastics usage by creating more awareness and helping to improve overall plastics management. And when it comes to the feasibility and sustainability of action items, from the roadmap, we have already seen that several Caribbean countries have implemented bans. So far, there have been 22 that have already had bans in place within the wider Caribbean region. And in general, these bans are either in place or in discussion, whether it be at the government level, or at the public level. So this is definitely something quite positive to see from the region. There's also increased interest in developing circular approaches. If we think back to our older generations, the whole thing about using things and then repurposing. So that's now coming back again, and people are finding additional ways to make use of waste, to put in value to waste products. And we've also been trying to foster capacity building and more partnerships, as well as looking at ways that we can use this as an opportunity for green jobs. And most importantly, we have recognized the role that regional agreements such as the Cartagena Convention or the Land-Based Sources Protocol, or even any global commitments, and especially what a new global legal agreement could have in catalyzing coherent action at global, regional, national, and local levels. So that's a quick little overview for me. So I hand back over to Liana.
Thank you so much, Fadila, for sharing your work in the Caribbean. Crispian Lau is the Commissioner and Vice Chairman of the Philippine National Solid Waste Management Commission, and he will share with us his rich experience implementing programs in the Philippines and his insights on the roadmap. Crispian, mic is yours.
Thank you very much, Liana. Just trying to... Okay, thank you for the opportunity to for us to present the Philippines pathway towards the National Plan of Action on the prevention and reduction of and management of marine litter. Well, just giving you the context, it was tough for the Philippines to get together the different government agencies under the Department of Environment, so to agree on development of the National Plan of Action. When we started, actually, it was kind of all over the place, and we needed to get everybody on the same boat to develop this National Plan of Action. And finally, it has taken off. We are a little bit late, but we believe that we have come up with a document that can really make a meaningful progress for a plan of action for marine litter. So looking at the timelines, yes, we started in August, and we were delayed a bit by the pandemic, and we needed to shift from multi-stakeholder face-to-face consultation to an online system so that we can get all the inputs for the final document. As it is right now, we have already finalized the matrix of strategies. And as I said, when we developed the National Plan of Action, we wanted to look at key elements and key components that can be actually implemented and monitored. So basically, we already have the NPOA document specifying the scope, the goal, the vision, right, the background, and the plan of action. I'd like to present quickly the mix of strategies, which actually looks into 10 key strategies, both looking at programmatic activities and enabling supporting activities. So some of these strategies would include evidence baseline information on marine litter in the Philippines, looking at circular economy or mainstreaming circular economy, enhancing recovery and recycling coverage and markets, prevention of leakage, reducing maritime sources of marine litter, given that the Philippines is archipelagic in nature, and the management of litter that is already existing in our riverways. So the cleanups are really helping a lot in doing this. So for enabling and supporting activities, here we look at policy support that is needed, development and implementation of strategic and targeted social marketing communications, and cost-effective and other institutional resource requirements for the implementation. And lastly, the strengthening of local government unit capacities for the implementation of National Plan of Action. This enabling environment is really a challenge to us, especially now that we just came from a big calamity. Apart from a pandemic, we have a calamity, and it gives us a bigger challenge in terms of putting the resources towards the Marine Litter Plan of Action. When you look at the matrix of strategies that we have developed, there are action items. We have set the expected outcomes. We identified timelines. More importantly, we identified the lead and the cooperating agencies and the sources of funding, and the resource requirement if resources need to be developed. And from there, we listed key or sub-activities that needs to be done to reach or to realize the action items that we have developed. So this is how the framework looks like. We're looking at mobilization, and then more importantly, once we have mobilized, once we have put funding into it, we need to look at monitoring and evaluation to ensure that what we have planned for is actually realized, and we intend to regularly update and at least every 5 years. So as far as the private sector is concerned, there's a lot of talk about commitments done by the private sector, and the private sector, in line with the National Plan of Action, has declared a zero waste to nature ambition 2030. We have some of the big companies that have already been mentioned earlier. So the whole objective is really taking those commitments of companies who have already committed and companies who would like to make their commitments, and together look into developing the pathways using the local settings. This would include reduction, reuse, recovery, and recycling. And we also want to look into taking out problematic items that cannot be recycled, so so that we can lessen the impact of packaging in the environment. We are starting with plastics, but we are not only focused on plastics. We are also looking at all other alternative items that are disposable as well. So yeah, that's a quick brief. Thank you very much, Liana, for this opportunity to present the Philippine setting.
You're most welcome, Crispian. Thank you. To share her experience in Seychelles, an island state in the Indian Ocean, we have Nanette Laurie. She is the Director General of the Enforcement and Permits Division in the Environment Department of the Government of Seychelles. Nanette, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Liana. Hello, everyone. Greetings from the Seychelles. In Seychelles, we have a number of success stories as well as different challenges that we face. And as the authority, we are trying our best so as to address the issues. As you may be aware, Seychelles receives a lot of plastics through importation. So we are not a producer of plastic as such, but we do receive a lot of plastics, especially in view of our strategic locations of our islands. And so this makes our work a little bit more difficult in terms of location and the distances. But however, since 2017, we have imposed a total ban on the importation, on manufacturing, and also on the commercial distribution of single-use plastic. And we've seen that this has been one of the most success stories that we can account for. People are now getting used to this. And we have also, during this time, banned styrofoam takeaway boxes. As part of this, we have had new regulations that have been drafted and are enforced. And so the authority, meaning the government, and through our partners, we are therefore trying to monitor as much as possible the effectiveness of the success of the bans. And further to that, in 2019, we did impose a total ban on the importation and the manufacturing, as well as commercial distribution on single-use plastic straws. So this is one of the things that we've done since 2017. However, we do acknowledge that we face a lot of challenges, including lack of monitoring as well as enforcement, mainly due to lack of resources. We have a limited number of people who are on the go, who are on site. For example, the number of staff that we have to monitor. So a lot of times we do depend a lot on the on our partners or even the NGOs. And also one of the challenges is that with the ban or with the regulation, we have exemption. So we have an exemption list. And at times we find it difficult because we have to make decisions which may include those items that are on the exemption list. Also, another challenge that we face is a lack of recycling programs in the country. For example, we are yet to have a waste sourcing program. So everything is deposited in the landfill. So this is one of the challenges that we face. And also budget. We know that now we are in a crisis, and so whatever programs or schemes that we may come up, this will need to have further decisions from the government. So it might not see those programs as priority for the country. So these are some of the main challenges. And in addition to that, we find ourselves trying to convince people to change the mindset within the country. So get used to using alternatives and also get used to participating in programs that we do organize on an occasional basis. So these are some of the main challenges that we are still facing as a small island state. I think the challenges that we face as well is more or less the same as other countries. And so for the next 5 years, because now we have a new government in place, one of the priority is to put a lot of emphasis on the waste management. So one of the main targets for the government for the coming years is to have a Seychelles free. So we are trying to then come up with programs that will target marine litter, that will target littering on land. So some of the actions that we will need to take. So in a nutshell, that's some of the challenges that we are facing, Liana.
So much, Nanette, for sharing your experiences. And now we've reached the portion of the program where our participants can query any of our speakers. I'd like to call on Libby Finch to moderate the Q&A. Libby is Senior Analyst with the Alan MacArthur's Foundation Insight and Analysis Team. Libby, please take the mic.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Just starting my video now. There we go. Well, thank you. It's been a really rich discussion already, and some people have been using the Q&A box to bring some questions in, but we've got just under 10 minutes. So if there's any other burning questions, please do fill them in, and we'll try and get to them. I want to start. I've been kind of keeping track, and I've grouped a number of questions that have come in that I think probably Sandra will be best placed to answer, and they really relate to the what can be done about the plastic pollution problem. One of the questions from Julia was, we definitely can't recycle our way out of this crisis, and she's looking forward to seeing the Upstream report and is looking for a bit of a preview. We've also had a comment from Jerome that the Global Commitment Progress Report showed progress in design, but not much less in reusables, which is a fair point. And from Anna that plastics are a problem throughout its life cycle, not just when it reaches our seas and our water streams. And so she's looking for thoughts and advice on basically restricting plastic production in the first place. So Sandra, I just wanted to give you a chance to respond to those questions in the round, looking at the solutions that are available that don't just rely on recycling.
Yeah, so I think fully agree with some of these comments and reflections. We'll indeed won't recycle our way out of it, and reducing the amount of plastics put on the market in the first place is a big part of the solution, and that's once again been reconfirmed by the recent Breaking the Plastic Wave study, where some other people were also referring to in the chat. But to answer the question on very concretely, what does it mean? What are the upstream solutions that we're talking about? I think it starts with simply eliminating some really unnecessary plastics. I mean, Tesco removing all the multi-buy wraps around their cans, for example. I mean, these are the obvious things, but this is not enough. And what we're talking about in the upstream innovation is really, let's think beyond the simply unnecessary stuff and think beyond this as a packaging design challenge where the solution space is restricted to redesigning packaging, because we think the solution space is way, way bigger than that and is heavily underexplored. If we, beyond rethinking the packaging, dare to rethink the product in the first place, rethink the delivery models of the products, rethink the supply chain, and making that very concrete. I mean, rethinking the product, the industry has been struggling for many, many years with making toothpaste tubes recyclable and is still struggling with it. But what if toothpaste didn't come in a paste format, but in a tablet format, and we didn't even need tubes in the first place? Another example, sometimes it's really simple changes. It was Samsung had their chargers in a shiny surface, which required a lot of protection because it was very sensitive to scratches, but just shifting that from a shiny charger to a matte kind of surface, a tiny change in their design eliminated the need for protecting it with a separate kind of wrapper around it during the transport. So that's changing the product, that's changing the delivery models. Think about SodaStream, where PepsiCo is completely rethinking how do we get fizzy drink to a consumer in a completely different delivery model, or the Algramos in this world bringing detergents to people's homes with a tricycle, as they called it, that the pilots they're doing in Chile with Unilever. And then think about changing the supply chain in terms of setting up reverse logistics and shifting to reusable bottles. The whole Loop platform is an example of that, but also things like dry misting and kind of spraying little droplets of water over vegetables in stores to keep them fresh in the same way as packaging would, but without the need for packaging. So just a few examples, and there's over 100 case examples in the book we're publishing tomorrow just a few examples to show that the solution space is so much bigger than just design for recycling of packaging, where all the efforts have been focused on the past decades.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sandra. That's really helpful. I've also seen a great discussion going on that's been sparked off by Solomon, asking what implications the roadmap has for subnational governments who directly manage plastics. And Fong and Jean have been responding, but I was wondering if either Fong or Jean would be able to share your responses to the whole group around that question about subnational governments.
Yeah, if I may jump in to provide a little bit answer to this question. The roadmap is, as I mentioned in my presentation, is the general action-oriented strategy, which is more focused on the actions that can be taken at global and national level. But we do not specifically focus on sub-national level, like city governments, and what are the recommended actions that can be taken by them. But based on the knowledge that we capitalized through from this project, we are now under the support by Jeff, developing a new project which will be focusing on cities in Latin American regions and to help them to transit from the current linear plastic economy towards a circular economy for plastics. And under that project, we will discuss and identify more interventions that can be applied at a sub-national level. Yeah, and we're happy to keep this group updated with the progress of that project later.
Hi, I'll answer for Jean. She's muted, but she works with me. So that question is a really good one because cities are really the front line, right? They have to deal with everything that gets thrown away every day in the space they're located in. But to a large extent, they've been very absent from the policy dialogue up to now. And finding a way to bring them into the conversation and to understand what their challenges and their needs are and to meet those needs is really important. So last year, Ocean Conservancy launched a new program called Urban Ocean in partnership with the Resilient Cities Network and the Circulate Initiative, which is the nonprofit arm of Circulate Capital. And the goal of that program is to bring cities the tools and the technical capacity to help them define their challenges and design solutions and then connect them with potential funding sources. So we're working with Dr. Jenna Jambeck, who wrote the famous 2015 study on marine debris. She is conducting work in all of those cities, the 10 cities, the 5 cities we're working in, 5 learning cities, 5 mentor cities, to conduct a circularity assessment protocol. Then we're holding stakeholder engagements, and then we'll be bringing in funders to talk to the city. So we're really excited about this approach, and we're learning a lot as we work on the ground about what are similar across city challenges, but also what's different. So we're hoping to get some meta learning out of this work as well.
That's great, thanks, Shiva. How are we doing, Leanna? Have we got time for another question?
Yes, we do. Maybe 1 or 2.
Okay. I've just seen one that's come through very recently from Melinda. That talks about how in Florida there are state preemptions on county or city bans of single-use bags, containers, and polystyrene. She asked, does the roadmap discuss this or have particular suggestions for overcoming these preemptions and moving towards the circular economy? So I guess this is more around the kind of the policy angle, but I don't know if anyone on the panel would be keen to respond to that question. Quite a specific one, I guess, but if anyone feels like it, jump in.
Go ahead, Ran.
Yeah, go ahead, Liana, if you would like to. Yeah, maybe just to mention, the roadmap does not specifically give like examples or case studies on the bans, but we did mention that we need to eliminate problematic or unnecessary plastic products or packaging. Yeah, maybe just a quick answer for this one, as we are kind of short of time.
And,
No,
and
that's
if
great.
I maybe can add to that, is what we see in our global commitment progress report is that for some of these items like PVC packaging, polystyrene packaging, single-use straws, single-use carrier bags, more than 90% of all our signatories are already eliminating these things, just realizing that creating a circular system for them is just simply, not realistic or not kind of going to happen in practice. So obviously that's the front-running businesses who are not waiting for policy to kick in. There is, of course, still the question on will everyone follow that example, or will it at some point need policies to really, to really have everyone do this?
Perhaps if I can quickly share from the Philippine perspective, we are actually posing that challenge to the companies who are actually using those packaging formats. The challenge to them really is to transition those materials into a circular model, or we find alternatives, viable alternatives that meet the environmental criteria and the economic system that can absorb those materials. We don't want to shift it to products that will be disposable just the same. So that's how we are approaching it from the Philippine context.
Fantastic, thanks. I think back to you now, Liana. Thanks everyone for your questions, and thanks to the panelists.
Thank you so much. I'd like to thank all of our speakers, our panelists, our partner agencies, the UNEP, the Global Environment Facility, Ellen MacArthur Foundation, Ocean Conservancy, and GRID-Arendal for making this webinar possible. I hope you all have learned about the roadmap to begin thinking about effective ways by which we can eliminate plastics, not just from the oceans, but from the environment as a whole. Please, to all our participants, thank you for joining us from all around the world, and our most sincere thanks to you. We hope that you can use all of our products, all of our knowledge publications, not just from the Jeff Plastics program, but from all of our partners. So more power to you in implementing an effective plastics program. Be well. Thank you.
Thank you, Liana. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Liana. Bye.
Thanks, Liana.
Bye.